What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the HBO Max original miniseries, Task. This will follow episode 1, which is called Crossings, and is directed by Jeremiah Zagar. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on my week-by-week review of this miniseries, which will be 7 episodes in all. It's created by Brad Inglesby, who of course created Mayor of Easttown, which was very hugely successful, and is a series that actually stars Mark Ruffalo as Tom, an FBI agent. It stars Tom Pelphrey, Robbie as a robber of trap houses. It also has Raúl Castillo, Emilia Jones, as well as Owen Teague, and it's a crime drama. It's a series that is in the vein of a Dennis Lehane story, even though it's not created by Dennis Lehane. It's in that realm of FBI agent has to track down a bunch of criminals, and this is a series that looked quite interesting to me, to be fairly honest, because Mark Ruffalo is a really good actor. The trailers were really good, and so I decided, thanks to Warner Brothers for allowing me to watch these reviews in advance of the episodes coming out, and so I wanted to talk about it in a week-by-week basis to give you guys some not only material for my channel, but because I really enjoyed the first episode, to be fairly honest. It's an episode that it's pretty by the book, to be absolutely honest with you. It's something that you've seen before a few times before, but I really enjoyed it because I think the characters are interesting. I think it's an interesting story. It's, it gives both sides to the story where these individuals are complex and they're not necessarily on the level, and they're not necessarily, people that are perfect, and they do things that may or may not be good in a lot of respects. But that's what makes these types of these series, as long as they're created well, good. And as we've seen from Mayor of Easttown, Brad Inglesby knows this world pretty well. As far as this series goes, it doesn't look like it's based off any type of existing material. It looks like it's an original property. And for this first episode, it's, I'm going to be fairly honest, it's pretty much set up to what the series is going to be. It doesn't really, what I call, invent the game, as I said earlier. It's basically, we have a character played by Mark Ruffalo who plays a kind of disheveled FBI agent who's kind of out of the field now. He goes to colleges and tries to recruit people for the FBI. There's actually a very interesting kind of story arc with him where he's at the college and he gets confronted by an individual kid who kind of just misinterprets what he does. This character of Tom is also a drunk. He's an individual who his daughter doesn't really, what I would call, relate to him, to be fairly honest. They kind of have a very strained relationship, and in the process of everything, Tom's character has a son who's in prison, which I'm assuming affects him in a lot of long life things or whatever. He can't confront his son, and it affects his daughter, and you really can see that this character is very flawed, and that very much feels like a kind of by the trope kind of story arc to a story like this. Like I said, it feels very much like The Town in a lot of respects, but it's a story where Tom is he's a very down on his luck individual, but because of these robberies of these trap houses, basically Tom is recruited by a character played by Martha Plimpton, who actually is quite good in this series, who's about to ready to retire, to basically go on a task force to take down these individuals who actually wear really cool kind of Halloween costumes. They similar to like something like Point Break, where the mask or like skulls and stuff like that. They're really cool to look at. They rob these places, and he hires a bunch of people to basically deal with the situation. And it's basically a starting point for his character to kind of go on the run. You think of like The Hunt. I think that's the one with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. But that's Tom's character is. That's what Mark Ruffalo does. But I think Mark Ruffalo in this episode does a really nice job of setting up his character, because Mark Ruffalo is very talented at being kind of like that disheveled, kind of out of place individual who feels very down on his luck. He does this in a lot of things he's done, but he really feels like he is at home with what he's doing here. So I'm really interested to see how his story arc will play out later on in the series, at least for the next 6 episodes after this episode. So once again, he's dealing with a lot of stuff there. It's the beginning of like his task force to take down these criminals, and that's kind of where he lands. I mean, once again, he goes to the prison to drop off something for his son, but he doesn't want to see his son. It's really kind of a thing where you understand that there's probably some animosity there. Maybe he's the one that took down his son in a raid of sorts. That's why he doesn't do task on the fields anymore, which is what I'm thinking it's angling towards. But he's a very he's down and out of his world of an FBI agent. And you see it, like, once again, he talks to the priest, and there's a really fun thing there that, he gets drunk, and the priest talks to his daughter and talks about how he's just down and just doesn't have any much going for him. So we'll see how Tom's character plays out. It's kind of predictable on what you think is going to happen, but I think it works pretty well because Mark Ruffalo is so good as an actor. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's kind of Tom's character for this episode. There's just not really much else there to talk about. So Mark Ruffalo is good. He's good as the main actor outside of Tom Pelphrey. And I like Mark Ruffalo, so I think he does pretty well for this first episode. But what works really well about this episode, what kind of stands it apart, is the criminals, which is what you really like to watch, because you'll watch a lot of movies, you'll watch a lot of series that don't really get into the heart of the criminals themselves, especially ones that are actually relatable and have kind of dimension to them. And as much as I like Point Break, I don't feel like the criminals were, I guess they had a little bit of dimension to them. But here we have the main character played by Tom Pelphrey, who plays Robbie, who is an individual who lost his brother, I'm assuming to drugs. So that's why they target trap houses. His niece, who's played by, of course, Emilia Jones, who plays Maeve, is 21 years old and dealing with the fact that she's pretty much on her own outside of her uncle raising these kids. Some of are Robbie's kids, some of them are her sisters and brothers. It sounds like she's lost family members and stuff like that, and there's a strained relationship there. That's what's really interesting between Tom and Robbie, is they're both dealing with strained relationships when it comes to their family and their kin and stuff like that. And Robbie's an individual that, with a character played by Raúl Castillo, who plays Cliff, basically go around, I guess they work and they either own a trash truck or a trash dump truck, or they work for the trash company, and they go around scouting out trap houses, which are houses that deal drugs and stuff like that. And they plot to basically rob them, with a character who's played by Owen Teague, who plays Peaches, who's like this, I don't know if he's drugged out, but he is very much kind of a weird free spirit of an individual. I like Owen Teague. I think he's an individual who doesn't get a lot of respect for being a pretty decent actor. But they go around and they rob these trap houses, and you see many times that they do this. And of course, Robbie is also dealing with his home life. He's dealing with the kids. And there is a lot there. It's a really interesting idea and an interesting concept. Yes, it has been done a billion times before, but I think Tom Pelphrey does a pretty decent job of creating a really dimensional, really kind of downstruck character who is dealing with some problems in his past and is dealing with, issues with his niece, and is dealing with the fact that she is just against him. And there's a really interesting scene, kind of funny, and I mean, it's a little disturbing, where he goes into his niece's room to smoke weed, and basically she brings in a boy and he's having to hide and stuff like that. And you see the stuff like that, and it's really kind of just, it shows you the nature that there is more to criminals than more than meets the eye a lot of times. And having this set in Philadelphia, or Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania or whatever it is, where even Mayor of Easttown was kind of set in that kind of locale, it really gets a sense of like the downtrodden, the people who really deal with like the problems of drug use, and the problems of people who are very low income, and people who deal with situational problems in a lot of respects. And that's kind of what Robbie and his family had to deal with. Like I said, every time they try to have dinner, things go wrong, and every time they try to do something goes wrong. And they go in the last part of this episode and basically rob a trap house, and Owen Teague's Peaches character is killed in the process, because the people in the trap house recognize the voices and recognize the people that are robbing them. And a lot of people get killed in that trap house, and it's kind of sudden. And I thought Owen Teague was going to be in this episode series a lot longer, but he's killed in the process, and everybody else is killed. And it leaves the moment where a young boy, who I'm guessing is the son of the two drug dealers, is found to be still alive. And Robbie, who is he's a terrible individual in the simple fact that he robs people, but because of what happened to his brother in that situation, and I'm assuming that's his niece's father, he rescues the boy and takes the boy home, which leads the FBI investigation to realize that there's a boy missing, which is not going to help Robbie in any aspect or realm. But Robbie is just a very interesting individual for this episode, because it really shows that he is just trying to provide for his family. Yeah, he does a thing where he is getting back at the people who kind of, I'm assuming, killed his brother. Like I said, I keep assuming because it hasn't been revealed yet. But you can kind of get the gist that Robbie's brother was killed because of these trap houses. Maybe these criminals wanted somebody killed him, or the drug use. You know, like I said, the idea of opioids and stuff like that was very prevalent in Pennsylvania and really prevalent in these areas where people were very low income and couldn't afford a lot of things. So when they would get injured, they couldn't afford to go to the doctor, or the doctor prescribed, those drugs that you saw in like the Dope Sick movie series and stuff like that. So I'm guessing that's where it's going to lead. That's pretty much their story as well. Like I said, Raúl Castillo and Tom Pelphrey are they're good friends. They're criminal companions. They work well together, and it's really kind of cool and really interesting to see that they use a dump truck scenario to scout out these places and to watch how these people kind of operate in a lot of respects. And then once again, when they go into the trap houses and stuff like that, it's really kind of interesting thing to see because it's really well shot. It's really well directed by Jeremiah Zagar. Then the Pennsylvania, state, it looks like Pennsylvania. It looks like the Midwest town. It looks like a very downtrodden town. And I think overall, it's a really interesting episode. It's a really compelling episode. Is it the greatest episode I've ever seen of television? No, because it is very by the book. It's very standard when it comes to the story it's telling. Like I said, you've seen the FBI agent go after the criminal a billion times before. It's not really inventing the wheel, to be fairly honest. That is a little bit of a downvote for the episode. But I think Tom Pelphrey and Mark Ruffalo and Emilia Jones are really strong in this episode. I think Raúl Castillo does a really nice job. I think, once again, Martha Plimpton is probably the standout of the episode because of how curt she is and cursing, and she's just really fun to watch. So I'm interested to see where this is going to go. It's an episode that has me committed now to doing this series, or else I wouldn't have reviewed it, to be fairly honest, because that's just kind of how I roll. But yeah, for the first episode, I had a lot of fun enjoying this episode. It kept me engaged, and I think I'm hoping it does pretty well for its 7 episodes. So with that said, that is my take on the very first episode, which is called Crossroads of Task. And yeah, there you go. That'll be my take. So there you go. Anyways, thank you so much for watching my review. I do appreciate it. Now that this review is posted the same day as this episode, let me know what you think of the episode. Are you going to be committed to the 7 episodes? What do you think overall of where it's heading? So there you go. With that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.